It has largely fallen to public health departments to enforce restrictions brought on by the pandemic, and for that, they've been rewarded with threats, vandalism, and worse.
Now, lawmakers are trying to ensure the people protecting us are protected as well. Here's Megan Lopez.
Public health, we make sure that your air is healthy, your water is healthy.
It's truly a service working in public health, a job in a department that before COVID most people didn't pay attention to. But when the pandemic hit,
I think we went from kind of quietly being in the background to being in the foreground, and a lot of which made people quite unhappy.
As the public health orders stretched from a week to a month to a year, a public display of anger.
This great suppression, as I call it, is illegitimate.
But then the protests became something more.
We've had people's dogs poisoned, someone's emergency brake cable was cut.
Across the state, the stories are similar and similarly scary.
We have had, threats and intimidation made to our staff over social media.
Leanne Jolin from San Juan Basin Public Health had people show up at her house.
I did hear noises outside my front door, looked out the window and saw about 20 protesters.
In Tri-County,
we had vandalism at one of our offices and like 6 times and had to close it down. And we had a firebombing threat at our administrative office.
It had to close its offices for 40 plus days due to threats.
We hired armed security. It's both frustrating and disheartening.
The stories go on and on.
They've seen a lot of threats for doing what is simply their jobs and just trying to protect public health.
The Colorado Association of Local Health Officials did a poll and say 80% of health directors in the state say they've been threatened. Many are leaving their jobs.
We have lost staff, and they're incredibly wonderful people. And I don't blame them one bit for leaving.
So a bipartisan group of lawmakers has introduced a bill to offer better protections for healthcare workers.
It will allow public health officials to remove their public information from certain state websites.
House Bill 1107 also makes it a misdemeanor crime to post their information publicly as a threat. Supporters say this isn't about stifling free speech.
But we need these conversations to happen in the right place, at the right time, and on the record.
To be criticized was one thing, but to be threatened was, for many people, just really over the top.
The bill already passed unanimously out of one committee, but it still has a long way to go in the legislature. Megan Lopez, Denver 7.